Everybody else has discussed it. We may as well.
You're
So
talking about my Gibson amps.
yeah, let's talk about your Gibson amps. So
I'm glad you're in a good mood because I think I'm about to get dark.
yeah, I'm gonna think about fluffy bunnies and puppies, and
Yeah,
David's
come on,
gonna
have to fucking ears.
David's David's gonna bring David's gonna bring the hobbits and the
Yeah,
trolls.
it's gonna
Um,
be bad. It's gonna be bad.
it'll be a
I have
regular.
a lot of theories. I have a lot of theories on why this went down.
Uh,
Um,
so yeah, why don't we talk about our theories of why as to why it went down? Why did it happen?
the pragmatist in me, the one that thinks that we should be looking at the positive view of this, says that Randall Smith is 75 years old.
Yeah,
Uh, he's not going to be with us forever. I think if anything, 2020 has taught us to respect that. You know, death can come at any moment, and I think he was. So I think he had a contingency plan, and I think that was a big part of the last 10 years of Mesa Boogie was sort of passing the torch to these other designers that he had brought in, and at least a few of them, like Doug West, um, have the business sense and understand the philosophy to continue the company. And I sort of felt like this was a um, my first reaction to it was like, why the hell would Randall Smith sell the company? Like this doesn't
yeah,
make sense.
yeah,
So first off, first thing to dispel here, I guess, is that Mesa Boogie probably didn't totally get sold to Gibson, but there is some advantage for them to be a quote unquote Gibson brand,
right,
which
right. I think that what we've got.
deal yet. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I'm
we may
gonna
never.
give my 2 cents, and I'm probably almost completely wrong, but after listening to a person that would be in the know, uh, the the fact is that I think what's going to happen is going to be more like, not exactly because everything is different, but more like what Gretsch did with Fender. Gretsch is still Gretsch. Gretsch still makes their own business decisions, whether we like them or not, and Fender is their distributor. And I think
Yeah,
that
basically the different. Yeah, but so here's the distinct difference there is they own a distribution contract with Gretsch. So like the way that this has been touted is like they own that part of them now, and I don't think that's necessarily what the specifics of this are. I
no,
think it may be a bit more complex than that.
right. I think what Gibson wants to finally do, and this is, I think this is more for Gibson than for not that Randall Smith is not getting anything out of it. He's not going to enter into this without some kind of business savvy. But one, I don't know what his family life is like. Maybe he doesn't have kids that he's leaving the business to, or doesn't trust them to take the business into the future. A la Kiesel or whatever. But probably more along the lines that at least this is my impression, at least with some of the things that Gibson has said, Gibson's looking to brand some Gibson amps, and
Yeah,
they have flopped terribly in the past.
multiple
They,
times.
they've just gone to crap. And if you think about it, a Gibson, if you're a part of a Gibson network of people, and I'm kind of in it, not as deep as most, um, it's a lifestyle. I mean, these people live, breathe, and eat Les
Yeah,
Pauls,
I was just
SG
gonna
Street
say they're the Harley
3000.
Davidson of guitars.
Right,
It's people. I see people who don't play guitar wearing Gibson clothing. Like
right,
it happens.
right. And the thing about Fender, those are the only two companies you could walk up to a stranger on the street and say, "What guitar brand have you heard of?" And they're likely to say Fender or Gibson, and not
Those
anything
are
else.
the two that they say. I mean,
Yeah,
that is going to be the two that they say.
right. And
Um,
because of that, one of the things that Fender has above Gibson is the amp line. Let's face it,
yeah, they've always
Fender.
had qualities. I mean,
Yeah,
it started out as an AM company,
yeah,
which a lot of people forget.
right, right. And they were making PA type gear, which most of your early amps were nothing better than PAs. It was accidental. Guitar amps are rather accidental. They were supposed to truly show us what our signal was supposed to sound like, and they didn't. they, and and
And
then
it was just limitations of the technology at the time. Basically, it was really because guys like Leo Fender were building this stuff out of the tube manual. I mean, they just had like, here's the RCA tube manual. I can use these tubes to build this circuit. And that's how we got Fender Champs. I mean, it was like that basic.
Yeah, I mean, was he a radioman? He was a radioman in the Navy or something like that.
Yeah, he was a radio repair engineer by profession as well.
Yep.
I forgot about his military service, but
yeah, he was in the service, I do believe. And so if we take those things, and like I said, then we have Randall Smith. Let's talk about the beginnings of Randall Smith. People, don't forget, people, he's 75, 76 years old, somewhere in there. Because at 23, I want to say it was 23 in 1969. I haven't done the math, so I don't remember what year or what age he is. That means that he was done with college, just done with college. His parents were asking him to get out of the Bay Area, and he went deeper into it, and he became part of the hippie crowd with musicians. And we've talked about this before on the show, but it's important to realize that was 1969.
Yeah, he was a really popular repair technician, and his repair technician skills. So this is the difference between Leo Fender, which is really just 20 years, right?
Yeah.
The difference in repair skill was that Leo Fender got his from the military, came home and started repairing radios in people's houses and started building, this equipment. Whereas Randall Smith was building radar equipment at 12 years old with a neighbor for the military, and learning about military spec and learning about how all this stuff worked, learning about tubes. And I mean, even by 1969, tubes were starting to be kind of old hat. And if you'd gone to tech school, there's a good chance tubes would not have been your focus. You would have learned them, but tubes may not have been your focus.
Right.
And so then he goes, into this scene because he liked tubes. He liked the technology and components behind it, and started working in a small music store. Of course, built the first Boogie. You can hear all about that story over at Sweetwater. They did an interview with them recently, and he talks about Carlos Santana and the whole Boogies thing. But like you're saying, like there are parallels there between him and Leo, right? So
yeah, very much so. And let's not forget, it was a modded Princeton. He did the mod on that Country Joe and the Fish took to Woodstock. So that's what I'm trying to put into perspective. Now, I'm 57 years old, and Woodstock happened when I was 5. He was 23. So there you go. Do your math.
I thought the first Boogie was built in 1970. They just had their 50th anniversary.
Well, no. It was a modded Princeton. I didn't say it was a Boogie. It was a modded Princeton.
I wonder if he considers that the first Mark I, because I thought that was his.
Maybe
maybe there's slight differences. I don't know.
Yeah, I do know that he built it for Country Joe and the Fish to take to Woodstock.
Yeah.
Now he would do this supposedly. The reason that he would mod these things is because it made them sound better, and that's when Carlos said, "This thing really boogies," and that's how he got the name. And of course, Mesa comes from the fact that he was in the Mesa.
He played the Country Joe and the Fish amp is basically what it was.
That's right.
It was sitting there, and they took it out front. But that's basically the history. And of course, later on, he pioneers high gain amplification, which is probably the thing Mesa Boogie is best known for.
Right. And really where it took off.
Yeah, and despite making like really incredible pieces of gear, but you have to understand that landscape back then, there was no Milkman, there was no Friedman. If you wanted a modded Marshall sound, you got a modded Marshall. I mean, that was there was no boutique market. They were the boutique market. When people saw Mesa Boogie the first time, like, what the hell is that? And then later on, of course, other brands followed and small builders and that kind of thing. There was always a custom scene, I'm sure, but I think they were the first company to really be on the map as a custom company that like really took off. And then the Mark II C Plus, when that debuted, everybody had the Mark II C Plus. Anybody who was anybody in Hollywood at that time doing recording gigs, they were as commonplace as the Marshall Plexi in the 1970s. Everyone had it. And it was just because if you were on that A list and you got called up for a session, that amp was super versatile. You could do everything with it, and you had high gain, which was something that didn't exist before that amp.
That's right.
That being Mark II, and then the Mark II-C, and then the Mark II-C Plus. So there's like all these different variants of it. But I've always joked, Jim, this is a programmer joke, that there's a Mark II-C sharp out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Or a Mark II-C Plus Plus.
Mark II-C Plus Plus.
Depending on how you feel about that. But of course, then the 90s hit, and I think their amps sort of had a reputation with like normal buyers as like, these are too complicated. And the Mark is notoriously like one of the harder amps to dial in. But once you understand the principles behind it, I mean, it's piece of cake, right? It just takes an hour to wrap your head around it. The dual Rex started showing up, and I initially thought the triple Rex came first. The triple Rex actually came later, but the dual Rex showed up, and there was a whole line, which a lot of these amps are forgotten, like the Blue Angel and stuff like that. They were all considered to be rectifier amps.
Yeah.
But the dual Rec, was the one that prevailed. It's still made today. They've done some different revisions of it. The current one they call the Rectifier Reborn is like a whole different thing. And when you play those amps, you realize like the controls actually do something. Number one, which is like the first shock. And then they're incredibly versatile. I've heard people say things, oh, you play a dual rack and it's just like triggering a keyboard. Well, let me tell you, if you're playing a dual rack and it's like triggering a keyboard, that's because you made it that way.
Yeah, you set that up wrong.
I mean, Ricky Buckingham was playing them.
Yeah. 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 So
like, seriously?
So let's talk a little bit about Gibson's amps. So they did exist, but Gibson's amps were like Fender's early amps in that they were meant to be
RT and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And they were meant to be truly like a PA. Remember that let's go back and look at what Gibson did. Fender's outselling Gibson. People are talking about the hollow bodies, and at first Gibson laughed Les Paul out of the offices. So they bring him and they go, oh, this thing looks like crap. We need to make a violin top, which is where which is still here today, right? And we need to make it beautiful. It needs to be luxurious. So it has to be gold or black and white, and so on and so forth, so that it's like a tuxedo or it's like gold hardware and this, that, and the other thing. And so they had a very, like you said, they were not just hard. I think they were like a DeLorean, if DeLoreans had ever been popular, of the guitar market. And because of that, their amps weren't meant to be, ugly amps. They were meant to be pristine, clean amps.
They just didn't have. I mean, I played old Gibson amps. I played a GA5 Skylark, and it's my buddy's dad's amp growing up, and it was still functional, so I got to dick around with that a little bit. I'll be honest with you, like, I don't think they're necessarily clean machines. I think they're more like the Tweed amps than people realize, but that's the problem. So Gibson didn't have any sonic expertise in the electronics engineering industry. And you got to go back to when this was, like, they were making these amps in the 60s. Gibson was not the behemoth it is today. They were more known for the acoustic guitars, and any of this other stuff was like, do we really want to risk money on this?
Right.
Like, how far do we want to get down this path? Now, they had amps going all the way back to 1948. In fact, I'm looking at Reverb right now. Here's a 1948 BR9, which looks oddly like a Fender Woody. And I think a lot of what they were doing was saying, well, shit, we're watching this other company clean up. We're going to do the same thing.
Yep. We're
going to mock up basically the same stuff that they're already doing.
Right.
And
because believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize that Rickenbacker was doing amps already too.
Yep.
So Rickenbacker was doing amplifiers even either at the same time or before Fender. I got to play a Rickenbacker amp. I don't know what anybody would want with one, but that's beside the point. The point is that we've got a really good we've got a really good thing that could come of this. We've got some. So let's talk about what we think is going to happen. with
there's one thing we're missing.
Mesa.
So Gibson's actually already tried to reissue amps.
Yes, they
did
did.
it in the
That's what I.
90s and the
Yep.
early 2000s. And I actually have experience with these amps. I played the Gold Tones before,
Yep.
which was the popular one. Like they had a head cabinet, they had combos, of course, and they were kind of weird looking amps. They actually looked like speaker cabs you find in the back of your car.
Yep.
And they had like a gold grill on them. And honestly, like I didn't think they were the worst amp I could play, or I'd ever played. But I'll be honest with you, they reminded me a lot of the Crate Vintage Club series, which was like everybody at that time was, it's got to be A class, and you want 15 or 30 watts. And it was right at the peak of the AC craze, right? Where everything was AC 15 or AC 30. And they actually got into trouble for these amps, if I recall, because they were saying they were point-to-point wired. And what they were really doing was that they were assembling the boards in such a way that they looked point-to-point on top, but underneath they were wave soldered.
Yep.
And a lot of people were insinuating these boards were actually populated and put together overseas, imported to the United States, put in an amp, and then charged. They charged pretty good money for these.
Yeah,
I remember going for $1,500.
Yeah, the marketing for them marketing and pricing wasn't good.
No, I think they developed these things, and I think when they got in house, they realized, oh crap, these aren't what we thought they were going to be, and so they blew them out. I think they just realized like we can't put a lot of marketing money behind something we know is going to be a lose.
Yeah, so that first wave of them was in the Nolan era. And again, there's no question about the fact that they were probably made cheaply as possible. Norland era,
the ones I have experience with are the Juskowitz era.
Yeah, and then there was the Juskowitz.
The vintage ones. I played a couple of vintage ones. So
yeah, and so the Juskowitz era was one. They were trying too hard to follow trends, as many things Juskowitz did, and it didn't. It bombed. The hardest thing is if you're Gibson, this is where I hope they don't fail. They can. I hope they don't. If I'm Gibson and I'm going to introduce an amp, what's it going to sound like? What do you and the average person, you being the average person, what do you think a Gibson amp is going to sound like?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I have no idea. I mean,
it's
that's the experience I had when I plugged into these guys, because I didn't even know back then. Like I played the vintage one way later, and that's a good point. I think there's a couple of things to remember though, as we talk about that, which is number one, Mesa Boogie is not going to be putting their names on these amps, but everybody knows that Mesa's building them, which is part of the hoopla surrounding this, right? And they will be running them as a custom shop amp line, so you can guarantee that whatever they put out is going to be pricey. It's not going to be $1,500. It's going to be $3,000. That's what my guess is. And it's probably going to be all custom colors and all custom cabinetry. And that's why they went to Mesa Boogie, because they want the fit and finish to rival, the 57 flame top Les Paul that everybody covets.
That's right.
And I think they did pick the right company to do that, and that's not my dispute. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I think it's worth mentioning that Gibson did have a couple of sleeper amp lines over the years that were kind of like they could have reissued that. I don't think it would have been successful. They had the Lab series, which are worth mentioning, because there are a lot of people that know that B.B. King played amps through Lab series things, and a lot of his guitars were direct through Lab series, and that the Lab series are notable because they were not tube based. They were the only major manufacturer guitar company producing an amplifier that was not tube based. It's like the Lab series, I think, was like 84ish, and Fender was still sort of getting off the ground with solid state. They were really the first ones to embrace it. In meeting a company that produces guitars. Vox obviously did it a long time before that, and other companies had done it. I think even Marshall had a solid state line at that point.
This is what I foresee. going into the future is I foresee Gibson releasing. Um, they're they're going to go to artists. That might be. Remember, just the other day we were talking about this artist roster, right? They're going to get artist series amps, and they've found the right people, like you said, but because the cost will be high enough, I think these are going to be not just custom shop. I think there's going to be a lot of special order on this stuff. I honestly I foresee um, where they're not going to ask because you can't ask Mesa to build faster than they already. They're not keeping up with a lot of the demand now, so they're certainly not going to put a lot on themselves. Because a lot of people,
I think there's a lot more outsider speculation there about what's going on over at Mesa Boogie right now that people realize. And I was reading through a thread on the Gear page this evening. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was somebody saying there was two things that I saw there that are related to this. That was like, how do you know that? And the first one was they were in financial trouble, which that's not been said by anyone I know, including dealers. Because in fact, most of the dealers that I've talked to have said we can't keep them in stock, especially in 2020. And the problems they are having with supply line are because companies that produce parts for them, it's like the transformer people, for example, they can't produce enough transformers, and they've been going through problems because of COVID, just like everybody else, and so they're dealing with the same issues everybody else is. That does not necessarily mean their business is failing. Actually, it probably means the opposite. They've probably taken orders that they can't fulfill yet, so there's probably cash in the pipe.
yeah, I agree with you because remember, there's a percentage you have to give up front to get one.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
just say, "Hey, order me one."
yeah. I've got one in the pipe right now. Actually, I got a bun in the oven. I mean, it's worth mentioning. And I've been joking with them that they, like, hey, when's my Gibson going to be done? Um, just as a joke. But so like, I have my reservations about this, and I think we can't approach the story from a completely pragmatic perspective, only because we both know Gibson has done some awful crap to companies they've acquired over the years. And like the ones that come to mind are like Steinberger, Kramer, um, Trace Elliott. Did they own Pioneer at one point, or they owned like part of Pioneer?
Yeah, they owned Pioneer, actually Pioneer, but Pioneer that was a dying business as it was.
They should
I'm
never
not
bought
sure
to
why
begin
they
with.
picked it up. Yeah, that was one of those things where why are you? That's like uh, buying a can of soda that's already got a hole in it. I mean, you're not going to
Sherwin,
get much out of it.
they owned Sherwin Vega. They owned, I think they still own them.
Yeah.
And they owned what, like Sonar, Cakewalk. Which,
Yep.
like, some of these acquisitions sort of make sense. Like if you look at Fender's portfolio of companies,
Yep.
um, some of them sort of make sense, but like the difference between Fender and Gibson is like when Fender's brands are not doing well, they kill them. And it's like, for example, De Armand is one that comes to mind. And De Armand was I think it was a string company or something back in the
Yeah.
70s that they acquired, and then they turned them into a guitar brand that
Yep.
was like sort of a parallel to Squire for Guild.
Yep.
Um, and then
Then they
they
killed it.
basically nixed that brand because they couldn't get it off the ground. Um, Now they have brands like Jackson, and they have brands like Charvel.
Yep.
Jackson and Charvel both had crappy times in their past. Charvel specifically, Charvel was like shuffled from hand to hand during the 90s, and
Right.
somehow managed to take that company and then basically just say, you're going to make guitars based on our bodies, and you're going to have a custom shop and resurrect that brand.
Right.
Uh, where I think like when Gibson buys a brand, it almost feels like they buy brands that go there to die. I mean,
Yeah. Well.
Steinberger was like a Titanic. What the hell? Why is this
Yeah.
not? I still don't understand why they haven't capitalized on that nostalgia yet.
Uh,
And Kramer, they did a soft launch of guitars this year, and I have not seen a single one in a dealer.
I haven't seen a single one anywhere. I'd heard about, like you said, there was a soft launch. It, I mean, I don't know about your local mom and pops, but I haven't seen a lot of guitars in stock. I mean, our music go round is almost, pick clean. Our Alpha Music, which is a mom and pop, is pick clean. Um, Moe's is pick clean. I mean, uh,
Yeah, I mean, like Good Time around here, they've got stuff. Um,
yeah, but they
what do you
don't
mean?
have as much, do they?
Uh, their shelves are not bare right now. I mean, but they also there was a period during this year where they were pretty empty.
Yeah.
But they had stuff on order. They've always got stuff on order. I mean, the brands, I won't say who, but some of the brands that local mom and pops order, I mean, they're back ordered out for years. And like people don't realize that when you buy from somebody, well, I mean, I can say this, I guess. I know that there is a local shop that has PRS SEs on order, and they were telling me it's 2 years out for new SEs. For like a standing order, and that's all they're getting. Because they're so in demand right now.
Yeah.
And that's like some other manufacturers too. I know that Ibanez has a tough time supplying dealers with AZs, and the wait
Yep.
time on those is over 6 months.
Yeah.
And those are big ticket guitars. And for like Godin, Siegel, right? So Siegel has this whole line of guitars from like 1999 that came out, and the only people that have seen them are like big dealers like you guys at Guitar Center and Sweetwater. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting that the time we're going through right now, like people are speculating that like, well, I don't see them in stores, so they must not be doing well. That's like no, that's probably the opposite. Actually,
It's the opposite.
Um,
To be honest, like what we've been seeing at my store is that we have seen. We don't have a. The other day when I worked last on Monday. I've got 2 more days left. I got Friday and Saturday. On Monday, I don't think we had a guitar other than a couple of 7-string Jacksons, under $500. Not a one. Even usually the ones that are not picked clean, like some of the Floyd Rose Jacksons and stuff like that, they're gone. They're just
Yep.
gone. And the we'll get those boxes that you get the guitar and the strap and everything else. It's the all complete box. They come in, they go out. That just as fast as we can get them out of the cardboard box that the plain cardboard box they're in. Put them on the floor. Somebody picks them up like they're toilet paper. I mean, it's just
yeah. Well, I'm sort of wondering if like a lot of those aren't ending up on Reverb or eBay. That somebody's snapping them up and they're trying to mark them up because they know
Yeah.
there's a big demand right now.
There's a huge demand, and the fact is that we talked about this earlier. There's a lot of people selling stuff. Used market is just silly. I had to laugh at Fluff's stuff this week because it was just some of the most ridiculous asking prices that you could imagine. But I'm looking at regular stuff. There's a person with a Taylor GS Mini. Normally, I would say if you were looking to sell a Taylor GS Mini used, I'd at least go $100 under cost because they're like $600 to 6 to 7 depending on the one you're getting. This guy's asking for the full price. You know why? Because he'll get it. He'll get it.
Close to it. Yeah, I mean he might be $10 or $20 shy. That was part of it. And I was talking to Nick when I bought my Fillmore because we were like, he's like, why don't you buy used? And I thought to myself like, well, yeah, I could. And I went to look and I'm like, this is stupid. The prices are almost as much as they are new. It's just dumb. I'm getting the color I want.
Right.
So we're in an interesting time right now, and I said like this is really a weird time for Gibson really to be doing acquisitions at this moment too. Because
Yeah.
if I were a company, and actually for Mesa to sell at this time, if I were a company, I would be thinking, what the hell is going to happen when this is over? Because this is a run. That's what this is. It's a run on. You call it a run on the bank. Well, this is a run on guitars. And what is going to be wild about it is when it's over, I think it's the bubble's going to burst. The floor is going to drop out.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see how the industry can continue to support this kind of growth. And without, capital investiture, and that kind of thing. So, just to comment more on the Mesa Boogie thing before we're really, really off track. I wanted to posit some other theories about what this deal might actually entail. Some things I've just been kind of mulling over in the back of my head. So, Jim, you brought up that they may actually be trying to further their dealer network and to levy the marketing department at Gibson to push Mesa Boogie in exchange for custom shop activities and that kind of thing, and that's very possible. I don't think the dealer network is as big a deal to them as people might think. I think the dealer network would be a bigger deal to Gibson at this point, because Gibson is so heavily invested in Guitar Center, and with Guitar Center having all its problems this year, it would make more sense for them to look at the Gibson or the Mesa Boogie dealer network and say, how about, since you already have this deal with Mesa Boogie, if you want to take on additional Gibsons, we'll count whatever you're doing with Mesa Boogie as credibility with parent Gibson. And there could be some sort of back end deal there where, Gibson receives 50% of that or something. I don't know. And in lieu of that, there's also this situation where, maybe Mesa Boogie, knowing that they're going to take on this business for Gibson, needs an investiture of cash to add on to their production facilities. Maybe it's ensuring the long-term stability of its employees, because Randall Smith always talks about the family atmosphere at Mesa Boogie, the fact that, it's basically the same 30 people that have been there for a really long time. Most of them have been there 30 years. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this, is like, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be if Mesa does not have control of their situation, and even if Gibson now says they have control of it, but things change, that could end up very badly for Mesa Boogie. That said, I think Mesa Boogie has strength as a brand, and I think that Mesa Boogie got strength in designers, and as long as those people stay there, I think they're going to be successful to an extent. I joked with somebody last night that I could just see J.C. Curley sitting in his office with his computer out, and he's got the schematics for all of the current Gibson lineup, and he's deleting circuit traces. We don't need to spend that much copper here. And this component doesn't have to be a Mullard cap. Like,
he'd be the last guy to do that. I worked in a small company with a CEO in that type of thing. The last person in the world that told us which carbon to buy was the CEO. But
I know.
I do know. I see what your point is. I could see maybe who's the guy that is their marketing guy?
Agnesi?
No, the tall, thin guy.
Yeah, the guy, I forget what his name is offhand.
Yeah, I can't remember his name for the life of me for some reason. But it's because, I got to be honest, in the beginning we saw those three consistently, and they've kind of gone underground for the most part. Agnesi has been the face of Gibson for a while.
Yeah, the face with the newspaper in his hands, screaming, "Please help me, please!"
But I gotta say this. I gotta say that what they hired him to do, he's doing. So I can't fault him there.
He's done a pretty good job since that.
Yeah,
I think that was the first "What the hell are you doing?" to play authentic thing.
Yep.
And now it's like buy authentic. I don't know.
I don't think there is any authentic anymore. I think.
They're still suing the crap out of people. They are still, like, every day I hear somebody saying somebody else is getting sued.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, again, we talked about that. Sometimes you have to sue even if you don't intend on going through with it.
That was something I was going to point out, though. So if they did buy Mesa Boogie, did they buy their patent?
Oh, jeez.
Maybe the legal department needs some work to do.
They'll sue Fender for Princeton's.
Everybody. I mean, if they bought the Mesa Boogie patents, like, you don't understand. Randall Smith has been defending him for years, and people hate him for it. And I could tell you right now, if Mesa Boogie bought him, they're going to hate him even more.
Well,
If they bought the patents, they're going to hate him even more.
yeah, I don't know. I do know that if he's smart, he'll hold on to those. So
Maybe he needed their legal department.
yeah, they'll,
Maybe he went to them and was like, "Hey, I heard you're suing everybody. Like,
you,
this sounds like a good idea. I want in."
you know when Walmart made a big change when Sam Walton died. I mean, when before Sam Walton died, I don't know if you remember, but Walmarts were clean. They had cash registers with people.
It was
They,
the place you wanted to shop.
that's right,
You
and it was a
you
and if you
know,
had to have a job that didn't require a lot of let's face
it
it, a
wasn't a
lot
bad
of
place. I had many family members that worked at Walmart in those years.
they had dental, they had vision, they had health, they had, and then Sam Walton died, and it became a shit show. And
Yeah, like almost overnight too. It
yeah,
didn't take long.
it did not take long, and that's my fear or my hope that they don't do, because Gibson has not instead of increasing its size, it made itself smaller, and it has a lot of people still there that have been there for 30, 40 years. So,
Well, it made itself smaller, and then it acquired Mason.
well, by acquiring Mesa Boogie and allowing Mesa Boogie to run as its own thing, like I said, it might be just, hey, look, we need something to put our names on so that when people are touring, it says Gibson on the guitar, it says Gibson on the amp.
I think that's very much. I hope best case scenario. That's actually what we're dealing with. That they looked at the California and the Fillmore and they go, "Holy crap! Like, we want to buy those designs.
Right.
In order for this to work for us, we need the people that are behind it." Because here's the one thing you got to keep in mind. This is the pragmatist in me coming out. I don't think there are that many tube engineers left. And to have the guys that they got over at Mesa Boogie right now at your disposal to build tube amps is a pretty impressive feat. But I also think it's something that you couldn't do and throw them out on the street either. You have to have those people.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It won't be Mesa, and people are not going to be gaslit by somebody saying, "Oh yeah, well, we've only changed, this many people." Like what happened with what was the
Heritage.
company? Vintage, right?
No, Heritage.
Heritage, that's it. Why did I say Vintage?
When they were acquired by Music, whatever, the distribution company, and then they brought in CNC machines, and a bunch of guys just walked out. They were like, "What the hell is this?"
Right after they told everybody nothing's changing.
They were like, "Nothing's changing," and they brought the CNC machines in, and then the next news story was like Heritage gets CNC machines. Next news story: Heritage loses 15 employees.
And it was literally an overnight thing too.
Well, I've also heard that several of those people have been rehired since.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was necessarily an all bad thing, but it's definitely like, wait a minute, what happened?
Yeah. Well, again, you get to where I don't think it can happen. They're not going to pump Mesa Boogies in from Korea and call them Mesas.
No. And actually, I think that's where this is headed eventually, is to not have an Epiphone brand line, but have a Gibson brand line that's complementary to the guitars.
Right. And maybe they'll do an Epiphone version of them later. Those will be the imports. It won't be a lie. It won't be like with Fender bringing over stuff, calling it Fender, and it's actually Squire or,
Yeah, I don't care about the country of origin on the amps. I don't think they do either.
Yeah.
I think this, just given the history there, but what I would suspect would happen, and this is based on like not so much market research, but just like eyeing the way that things are. Most of your investment Gibson owners, the people that that are like, the blues doctors and the rock lawyers and that kind of thing, the guys that go and buy the custom shop Les Pauls but don't actually play guitar and keep, they don't have amps, like not like that, right? And so I think that something would be in order for them, like, yeah, I want an amp, but I'm not going to spend money on it. Like there are definitely people that are like, I'm not spending money on the amp. I'll spend $5,000 or $6,000 on a guitar, but I want to have an amp that's like a tenth of that in price.
Trogley. It's
they might
they're all going to be like Trogley. They're going to have $150,000 worth of guitars, and God knows what kind of amp he plays through, or cares for that matter. I don't care.
Yeah, well,
But
like,
I'm just
well,
saying.
Jim, I could argue you got about $11,000 worth of Gibsons back there, and and you're playing a DSL 40 CR. I mean,
I like my DSL 40 CR.
I
That's
know,
the
but
difference.
I'm just saying, like, you can make the same.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could
you
have
know?
I could have not bought the 335 and bought a a Mesa or a Fender,
Yeah.
or I mean a Gibson.
I don't know if you have $11,000 in Gibsons. I think you have three. I think you have 9,000 or something close to that.
355, somewhere
It's-
around
yeah.
around 8,000.
9,000. Yeah.
Oh wait,
it's-
I do have I actually do have $10,000 worth of Gibsons. I forgot about I always forget the acoustic because it sits in the other
right.
room.
So
Yeah, I do have about 10 grand in
so
which
yeah,
is
you have
not a lot.
10,000 in acoustics, and then you have or $10,000 in guitars, and you have like 800 or 900 in an amp.
Yeah, yeah, and
I'm just saying, like, it just seems lopsided, you know.
it is lopsided. If I didn't like that amp, it wouldn't be because believe me, as you know, I would have changed it out. I'm
Yeah,
not
I know he likes the amp because this is his second or third one. It's the third one.
third, and I've gotten rid of this one. And I do like the Fender, so it's like you know what, I got a light one and I got a heavy one. And I prefer the heavy one to the light one, but when I need to, I can carry the light one and use that. I'm kind of like Larry Carlton in that way. And now I'm Mr. 335. But the thing is,
God.
no, I'm not. Not even by a million miles.
Like, I'm not even gonna let you get away with that one. That's not okay.
I can sing Kitty Charlie Man better than K can.
Probably.
Yeah, that's about where it ends. I could sing it better than he can. But let's take this to the thing. By the way, folks, this is your bonus. This is 200. This is numbered 200.
Is it
So
actually
even though
number-
we're like at number 203 or 4 or something like that,
yeah,
I don't know.
like, because we've had a couple of episodes in there that like weren't real episodes, and
Yep.
There's some on the cutting floor too.
There's a couple of them. There's lost footage. There's files that don't exist. There are files that won't be released. But
not to the general public.
yeah, not to the general public. If you want that, that's Patreon only. But it's funny that we've come this far, and definitely been a great thing. I think that if Fender wants to buy us, we're available.
Yeah, I'm ready to sell. Just let's do it.
All right,
Like,
Fender.
Work.
We'll give you a break. We'll give you $500,000 plus
We work hard.
royalties. Plus
We'll keep
royalties.
doing it for you. We work hard. Trust me.
Yeah.
But you got to pay us.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny. We were talking about the first world problems, and one of the things that came across my mind, and it wasn't direct. This isn't directed at you. It's directed at all the whiny bitches on the internet right now about, oh my God, Mesa, blah blah blah. I'm like, you do realize that there are really heavy things going on. I don't want to get in the weeds about them. I don't want to bring them up.
No, everybody knows there's heavy shit going on right now.
Right.
But you know what? Actually, I want to comment on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like, my response to you is like, everybody needs a distraction right now.
Yep.
But so I didn't realize how heavily invested in Mesa Boogie I was until I got the news.
Yeah.
Because two people reached out to me within a minute and a half of one another and said, "Did you hear?"
Yeah.
And that was before it was official. And both of them said it's just a rumor. And I said, I stopped. I actually backed up from my computer and I said, what am I going to do with this? And then like it actually, I saw the confirmation and I actually messaged you after I saw it.
Yep.
And I sat here for a good 5 minutes and was like, what does this mean? Because honestly, like right now with the track record I've had with their products, they're the first company I look at to buy an amplifier. Like I know I can trust that company, but it's like can I now? And I'm kind of the frame of mind, at least in the short term, I can.
Yeah.
But it's
I think in the beginning you're going to see a similar reaction to what happened when CBS took Fender. I think you're going to have a reaction of the fans and the buyers, not necessarily of the thing. Is that they're going to say okay, and then remember how we've got black faces and silver faces, but some are like the old. And I think there's going to be a little bit of that going on. Honestly, I don't see any huge changes coming in the near future. None.
yeah,
I
I mean,
see
they're
some
3 years
brand
down the road, 4 years down the road. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not anything that's going to happen in the immediate term. I actually, the other comment I wanted to make about it was, I don't think people. It's like a lot of people don't. I know if you've never owned a Mesa Boogie, okay,
Right.
and this is for anybody who hasn't owned one, and I'm sure there are people that have owned one. Jim, you've owned one, that probably won't fall into this category, but I can tell you that the people that like get it are freaking adamant supporters of the brand. Like they will go. I see them going to Good Time and literally buying things without taking them out of the box, and I mean like. I've never played this amp before, but it's Mesa Boogie, so I'm not even going to take it out of the box, kind of thing.
You already know I'm getting the California. It's just not going to
Yeah.
be this year. It'll be next
Well,
year.
but
And it'll
you
be
know
a
what I'm
Gibson
saying,
California.
right? Like, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
when people go into the store and they don't
Yeah.
take something, they don't even want to demo it.
You don't
It's
have to.
I'll do it at home. It's fine.
You don't have to.
That's just mind-boggling to me. And honestly, like it says a lot about the brand that's happened.
Yep.
And I would like to believe that this is the way I want people that are Mesa Boogie fans right now to think of this. Let's hope, let's send all the good vibes, and let's hope that Mesa Boogie rubs off on Gibson. That Gibson doesn't rub off on Mesa Boogie.
You know that, yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. You know what I see this like? It's as if, you remember when Harley Davidson, Ducati,
Yeah.
okay? But let's imagine, shall we, for a moment, that instead Harley Davidson acquired, and this is kind of way out there, so just be ready for it. Let's say Harley Davidson acquired BMW, the motorcycle one. Okay, so BMW's out there. They make top tier high end motors for a particular crowd. If you're a BMW rider, you're not a Harley rider. If you're a Harley rider, you're not a BMW rider. I was a Harley rider, but I love Beamers. I really do. I think they're gorgeous. I think they're fantastic.
They're still very Motorworks, right? Though it's
Matter of fact,
still part of the
Yep,
car company.
that is right. They are.
I think actually put it the way you really want to put it, which is they just acquired BMW completely, cars and all.
Yeah. So let's say that happened. If that was to be the case, if you were Harley Davidson, wouldn't you want to learn from them rather than them learn from you?
Yeah, because right now they're working. Like it's quite clear they have a winning formula.
And here's the thing, that you kind of came full circle. We're kind of like a comedian that brought it back around. Boogie fans are Boogie fans, tried and true. They will go to the ends of the earth, and therefore, what Gibson misses and what Boogie misses is the connection of guitar and amp. That really, a lot. Now, I'm not saying all Boogie players play Gibsons, but there's a good percentage of good Boogie players that play Gibsons, and a lot of Gibson players.
I think PRS is probably the bigger company for them.
Yeah,
because a lot of people in the last 3 days that if PRS had bought Boogie, they wouldn't have been shocked at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody would have been shocked by that. But I should have said a lot of because they've always been associated with Marshall. Gibson's always been associated with Marshall.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going back to the stuff and all that.
Right, but Boogie is like Gibson. It is a lifestyle choice of what you play through.
It is the only lifestyle brand I can think of that isn't like really a lifestyle brand.
Right. Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like they never really bothered to become a lifestyle brand. It's like, well, shit, we're just gonna keep making amps, and I mean, I still have to make hats and stuff like that, but it, they didn't go full on Marshall. They haven't done a Bluetooth speaker. They don't have a solid state line that's really just for people to pretend like they have a real Marshall. Like, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yep.
and I'm not really saying that their solid state line is crap, but I'm just saying like they have the micro stack and all that stuff, like the silliness of it. Fender's a lifestyle brand too, like way more than people care to realize. But I think the interesting thing about Fender is they still produce guitars that people want too, which
And amps.
obviously, like, I may not fit into that category, but clearly somebody wants them.
Yeah.
But
And amplifiers, but
Yeah.
I think a guy like, and this is what I was about to get to, so I'm gonna bring this to a head here, at least my point. Gibson is a lifestyle brand. Boogie has a group of people that are very adamant, much like any other underground thing that. What was that computer everybody loved? You might be too young. Started with an A.
Altair.
Altair. Everybody was still using them, even though they were like distant past. There was this rabid community of people that kept using them through the Commodores, through the Apples, into the Macs, into the PCs that far outshot them.
Yeah, like 10, 12 years after they had been like decommissioned, people were still using the Altairs.
Yep. So here's what I want to. Here's where I want to bring it. Right. Let's look at who's in charge of Gibson. Right. It's what was his name again?
It is
Starts with a C.
AC Curley.
Curly. Okay, what did Curly do before this?
He worked for Levi's.
Levi's.
CEO.
Levi's is a lifestyle brand.
And unfortunately,
If there's anybody now if he lets the technical side continue to do what it does best, if he can let the people building do building great or better, then and I don't go think that I'm saying Mesa has to improve. Gibson has been improving. It can improve more. There's a couple of spots on my 335. I went, that's not a $3,000 guitar brand right there.
I played. I commented in the group the other day that I haven't really been impressed with anything in the 2019-2020 lineup. I played several at this point, and each of them had little issues where I was like, really? And they were, and it was more or less because like when you pick up an $1,800 guitar and you see an issue with the binding, or like you pick up a $2,500 guitar and one of the frets is clearly high, like it's you just kind of have a minute. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Especially when it
problems, but it's
especially
just,
when it should have went, or it definitely went, because all Gibson USA's went through a pluck machine. There's no excuse for that, except that maybe a fret popped out or something happened during a post plucking process, and then somebody forgot to put it back in the pluck. That's the only
there's
thing
something they actually don't do with the pluck machine. I forgot, and there's like a whole thing about it, and people have been talking about it for years. That like a lot of people who get a fresh Gibson out of the box will take it and go get it plucked, which sounds mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
But apparently, there's some part of the process they leave out, and it's a conscious thing on their side. They do it for a reason, but
yeah, it might be. I don't know. I just know that mine are good that way. That I have no complaints that way, but there's a little bit like along the neck, the red. There's some white in there, but you know what? It's a guitar, and I'm playing it, and I love the sound, and I'm not going to sit there and nitpick a little bit of paint because of that. And I understand both sides of this fence, because believe me, I have some friends that are. They look at every single little detail, and if it's not right, they get another one.
Yeah, I don't really feel like that's the appropriate way to deal with the issue either. I just was pointing out that, you know, as much as people have said that like they've improved their quality, I'm like, it looks like the same stuff to me. I mean,
I don't know. I have seen. I get to see a lot of them. I've seen a lot of improved quality, But then again, um, there is not. I think there's perfection and there's reality, and they got to meet those two. They got to get there. There's no question that the quality could come up, or my guitar wouldn't have all those scratch marks on the inside of the pickup cover, and where it used to be Heritage Cherry, and it isn't.
Honestly, I would be fine if they just dropped the price $200. I'd be like, you know what, this works.
Yeah, yeah, you could do that. Um, but on the other side, what I'm trying to get at is Curly knows how to work markets to create um, a CEO's job is twofold. The CEO's job is to, um, well, at the very top of it all, to get money into the company, whether that's through investors, through whatever. That is the CEO's job. You know that.
I think their board of investors realizes they're a lifestyle brand and they don't give a shit about anything else at this point.
Right.
And that may be the only way that they have forward, because they were so deep in the hole that they let it get too bad before they could go back. So like a normal company under this situation would go back to their core values. And I don't see that as being the case here. I see that as being the opposite of what's going on, which is they're doubling down on the lifestyle side. They're becoming Harley Davidson, essentially.
Yeah, I don't work for them, so I don't know how it is in Nashville. I've heard some good stuff. I've heard some people that left under bad conditions. So, but uh, the thing that I do see is an honest attempt, whether it's good, bad, or different, an honest attempt to try to get them into the good graces of the people that continue to buy their products, because they expect the quote-unquote Harley Davidson of guitars. And I can tell you this, Harley Davidson isn't perfect either. So, I mean...
Yeah, none of the buyers think they are either. They first thing they do is they get them home and they change something out.
And that's exactly right. The first thing they do is they take shit off the motorcycle and they put stuff on. The first thing they change is the pipes, which is the sound of the motorcycle. It's kind of funny that we're talking about that. It's like, what do you do? One of the first things people do when they're buying their guitars, they want to change out the pickups. They're changing out the pipes.
And that was what I was going to point out.
That's kind of funny.
A lot of people like the pickups in their guitars, but like I've heard a lot of people don't like their pickups too, like immediately. And I don't think if somebody's they're buying your guitar, they're immediately going home and getting the boutique equivalent of what your pickups are. You need to reverse engineer that boutique equivalent. And you need to figure out what the hell you're doing wrong. Because Gibson charges way too much per pickup for them not to have the formula correct. And not what they think is correct, but what their buyers think is correct. That's troublesome.
I don't think any guitar company has been satisfied with the pickups that they put together. Fender does the same damn thing. Every time you turn around,
suck. I'm not even gonna lie on that one.
Yeah. Every time you turn around, no, this is the most vintage Stratocaster that we've ever done.
They're just grasping at straws. They don't know what the hell they're going after.
Nope.
And that's what's mind-boggling to me. Is like you've got all this vintage market. Like the reality is, what Fender needs to say is that we don't really know what this is what we think the Strat pickups should be, because we really don't know what the end user wants, and they should just kind of like approach that from the perspective of what do we think is going to sound good to the widest array of players.
So because
that's not what they're doing.
And here's my take on that. Next is that so Gibson has worked a lot with. We talked about Jerry Cantrell. We talked about Slash. We talked about Bonamassa. I don't think Mark Agnesi went to Joe's house just for a beer and to talk about his guitar collection.
It wasn't enough.
Yeah, I think that they had more than that meeting, and I think some of the things that get discussed, and of course we know that these things happen, are, hey, we know we can improve. What can we do to do better? Because before, artists were running away. We know that. And other than, I don't think a guy like Jerry Cantrell or a guy like Joe Bonamassa or even a guy like Slash is going, yeah, I need you to line my pockets better. I think that they're actually, maybe Slash. I think, I think that Jerry Cantrell is going to give honest feedback. I think that who did they just have that I
Most
watched?
of those guys are going to give honest feedback. I mean, and that's the problem is under the old administration. I don't think the honest
cared.
feedback. I don't think they gave a shit.
Nope.
They were still trying to deal with the fallout from the Firebird X.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and that was not something that happened like a year or two before the end. That was like a 10-year-old flop.
That's
and they
right.
were still trying to deal with the fallout from that,
Yep.
which is insane.
And
if you think
everybody that tried it before it became a
Yeah,
thing
totally.
other than a prototype said, no,
What are you
no.
doing?
They slapped Jeskowitz on the nose with a newspaper. Bad. No. Do not release that. And he did it anyway. He's like the dog that pisses on the floor.
Here's the dumb part. So Jeskowitz has this thing, right? The Firebird X. And Joe Bonamassa was actually one of the people that played it. He had the Firebird X. And he's coming up with this idea that, we have to enter into the digital guitar space. Because I'm sure he's looking at Line 6, who was a hot brand right then, and was saying, how do we compete with them? You don't. You're not an amp company. What the
Right.
hell?
Right.
Now they have one. So it's just kind of bringing it full circle and fixing that problem. And like, the other company that I think would be really funny if Gibson acquired, and I haven't brought this up to anybody yet, but what if he bought Fractal? I mean, you want to see some pissed off fanboys. Bought Fractal and then boots Cliff.
Oh, Jesus. No. Oh, my God.
I mean, that's a private company, so it would have to be a hostile takeover. Like, they'd have to come in and literally buy him out. But
Well,
Cliff has profits.
Isn't Mesa a private company?
Yes,
Yeah.
fully private. In fact, one of Randall Smith's big claims, and this is why I've been kind of trying to dissect this whole thing, is that he's never run the company out of a line of credit.
Right.
Like, it's always been by the checkbook. So he's cash accounting, which basically is unheard of for a company that had the kind of receipts they've had. So, and of course, we're speculating receipts, but we know that Mesa Boogie has been financially successful. They've been in business for almost 50 years. There's over 50 years at this point.
Yeah.
We know that they've made money. You don't run a business for 50 years at a loss. Or they're broken even. Maybe they just are content to have their salaries and go home.
I gotta wonder that you brought it up earlier. I gotta wonder if he reached out and said, "Hey, I'm looking to get out of this. What can you give me?" to PRS, and PRS said, "Nope, not interested."
I don't think he was looking to get out because he's still working there. He's
No.
working there
I
till-
just mean that the future. He's looking at his future. I mean, if there's some cash infusion or promise of cash infusion, I'm wondering if it's, even though it's Gibson buying them, I wonder if there's a little bit of the other way around.
I think so too. And one of the things I was floating in my head was like, with Gibson's financial problems right now, I wonder if he's got money put away and he bought a chunk of Gibson.
Well, yeah, or that was the thing. Oh yeah. Oh
Or
yeah,
something.
you can put your name on some of my amps. I get a piece of you.
Yeah.
Because Gibson doesn't have the cash to float that he might have.
It's a good investment. Gibson's not going to die.
No.
I mean, they survived a bankruptcy and leadership from one of the most batshit crazy CEOs I've ever seen. If you think Henry Jeskowitz was of sound mind and body while he ran that company, you got to. I question your sanity.
As Judas Priest said, you've got another thing coming.
Yeah, I mean, like, I question your sanity because Juskowitz is clearly nuts.
Yeah.
J.C. Curley may be evil, but Juskowitz was nuts. I would rather take evil because you can at least predict what evil's going to do.
I don't know. I see Curly, and I see a guy I can kind of look up to. I may not. I may always keep my eye on him. I see a guy I can probably look up to. He commands a room. The guy that why can't I remember his name? The guy that's the marketing. He's definitely got in his heart. And the other guy, the short guy that they've got that's in charge of production, he's the COO, I think.
Yeah.
He has a real his. I'm not saying I'm 100% sure of this, but to see him do his videos and to do his stuff and they did because I rewatched that 8-part process thing they did when they brought in all the employees and he's there. He's been with that company for 30 something years. He's got that is him. There's a certain thing about a guy like that who invests his life in a company and in a brand. He has no interest in seeing things fall apart over there. So even though Curly is new, I think they brought him in for the right reasons. I think that they really did.
Well, it's way too early in his tenure to start evaluating him. He's only been there 3 years.
Yeah, well, yeah, only 3 years.
He's been at Guitar Center, but he hasn't been there that long.
But you notice what he hasn't done in those 3 years? He hasn't stepped up and gone, and now I'm going to do that. He hasn't been a Henry Juskowitz. He's been a silent partner for the most part and oh, God, his name came and went so fast. I know it's a Hispanic name. Anyway, he's let those two guys run the show. They have been, between Agnesi being the face and the other two guys doing their jobs. Wow, letting them do their jobs, that's unheard of.
Well, but I would expect nothing less from a modern American CEO at this point. Like that's kind of what the mantra is these days. It's not like the Kellogg School of Business Management years ago where they taught people to basically just push people around. That's where HJ came from. He was a dude that pushed people.
The Kellogg's, if you ever read the history of Kellogg's, man, that is some scary shit right there.
The Kellogg School of Business Management? Yeah. I would encourage any of our listeners, if you're not familiar, read up on some of that stuff, because I've worked for two people that actually worked at Kellogg, and I can tell you they were both cut from the same cloth, and it was not a fun experience. I'll be completely blunt right now. I'll never work from another person that works.
There is some true evil.
Never.
I mean, real, true evil coming from Kellogg.
Yeah. Gibson is not that bad.
I don't even want to eat their cereal.
Bad, but it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. There is no way. But anyway, yeah. I know there's a lot of people that don't. I have high hopes. I hope it turns things around for both companies. I hope things go in a positive direction. That's what I hope. I can hope in one hand and shit in the other one and see which one fills up faster.
That's exactly how I feel about it. It's
but that's what I'm going to keep hoping until I get proven otherwise.
Hey, worst comes to worst, I'll just buy pre Gibson Mesas, so that's fine.
Yeah. And it won't be that bad.
They'll be out of date and there won't be new ones, but
they'll outlast you. Your amplifiers will get passed on to your grandkids.
Probably.
That's for sure. These guys are getting passed to my grandkids. And that's the beauty of it all. So I appreciate your help. I'm going to start recording some stuff now. Yeah. And I have this beautiful blue box. Well, white box that's glowing blue on the inside for some reason. It glows red if it gets... Did you notice that? If it gets a hard hit, it glows red. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it glows red if it gets hit hard with signal. It glows red if it has problems connecting to Bluetooth. And if it freaks out, it'll blink red. I have not seen it freak out yet, but apparently it's in the manual. I would highly recommend reading the manual on that because it has a lot of hidden features.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah, it's like I read it after I started using it, and I realized something. It's like when I first got mine, I didn't realize that you could unplug the speaker cabinet and this is in the box. was like, well, what the hell? Where's the load box function? Like,
Oh,
I'm in
you
the
could.
software.
You could.
I was doing on the Switch. It's like,
It's a load, right? It just
Yeah.
loads.
yes.
It just
I wasn't
loads.
smart enough to figure that out.
Oh. You can have the speaker on it.
When you have a $1,300 to $1,700 head, you look in the manual before you just try shit.
Yeah. So what's cool is for people that don't own one, it's kind of cool. They do give you this quick start in both English
Yeah.
and French, and which I can read both. But anyway, so oops. So what I liked was they have this inside, instead of having a bunch of words, look,
Diagrams.
So you plug in the amp and you go to your audio interface. Look, no switches. and then you can go in and then go to a monitor and front of house. In and go to the audio interface and still come out of this in headphones, which I thought was cool.
Yep.
But here's the thing. In cabinet. Here's what I don't know. When you use that last one to the cabinet,
Yeah.
it's actually if you read it left to right, it's actually the first one. But anyway, I'm not really sure. Can you still take the outputs? It doesn't look like it. It looks like if you take it out to the amplifier, you turn off the XLRs.
No, that's incorrect.
Yeah. See, that's just it.
That's patently incorrect.
Yep. Well, if you looked at this drawing, you wouldn't know that.
No, they're just showing you the different uses that you could potentially have for it.
Yeah.
That's not the only way to use it, kind of thing. It's just
Yeah, because I was thinking you could use the headphone out anytime you wanted.
yeah, you could use it with the amp turned all the way up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which if you're running, it's like what I'm saying with the speaker connected, and then have it all the way up, and then put headphones on, which would be like the silliest thing in the world to me. But
Yeah, it is kind of silly.
this is gonna bleed right through. But
But it works.
wet rig.
A wet rig. A wet rig. A wet wig. Or a dry wet rig. Or dry wet wig. I keep saying
All right.
rig instead of rig.
All right, we've been practical guitarists. We're out.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, Big 200.
Yep.